Hey everyone, this is Fabio with Fabio Verdiani Designs. Welcome to this tutorial on how to leverage the Uship platform in conjunction with Etsy when you have an Etsy shop and you need to you ship furniture. Etsy is a fantastic platform for selling, but it has some limitation when it comes to integration with shipment services for large pieces, such as furniture. And it's probably more adapted for smaller items, but Uship is a great platform, and I want to share some of the tips of using Uship in conjunction with Etsy. I have an Etsy shop, and I have been using Uship in conjunction with Etsy for probably 18 months to a year. I have shipped probably 20 items successfully. And so, if there's any tip that I can share that can help you, I'm more than happy. There are a couple of other tutorials out there on the same topic. They're helpful. I think that there's a couple of tips that they're missing, so that's why I'm doing this one. So if you like it, give me a like and also subscribe to my channel. All right, here we go. All right, here's the picture of the overall process. It looks a little intimidating, but it's not at all. So how do you read this picture, this flow? So here on the left, you have the different players: the seller, yourself, the carrier, the customer, and then you have the different steps. The steps that are blue are steps that occur on the Uship application, either on the browser or on the app on the phone, and the ones that are in orange occur on Etsy. The items that have square corners are steps in the process. The ones that have round corners are just notifications, informational steps. And then the stars identify steps where I will give you more details through some screens so that you understand what you need to do. And finally, the assumption here is that you have already set up a Uship account with the billing information, which is detailed in a different step of this tutorial. So the first step is to list it on Etsy. And the reason why we need a little bit more details here, I need to give you more details, is because there's a couple of parameters that need to be set in the shipping profiles to take advantage of Uship, and also a couple of parameters to be mindful about. So we will discuss those. So once you list it on Etsy, then obviously, hopefully the customer buys it. And when they buy it, you, as usual, get notified on Etsy of the purchase. And this is when you need to go on Uship and list your item for shipment. And we will detail how to do that. There's really two methods to do that. Either you set up a bidding mechanism. Obviously, you give the weight, the destination, and all of those information, which we will detail in the screens. But also, there's really two mechanisms. You can ask for the carriers to bid, or you can set your own price. And Uship will give you suggestions of what's the best price to maximize the chances of successful shipment. So once you're done with that, every time a carrier applies for your listing, you will get notified of the different offers. And at some point, you may want to review the different offers. So let's suppose you get 3 offers. Then you can review them. You can view the profile of the different carriers, how many stars they have, which ratings they have, what reviews they have, which policies they have, which restrictions. But also you can exchange with them through the Uship platforms with an internal messaging mechanism to ask them a question if you want, or they can ask you questions. Sometimes actually you can even get a question before they even put in an offer, because they want to validate a couple of things with you. You can only exchange with them through that platform. You don't get access to their emails or their phone numbers yet. So once you have made your decision based on the data points that you have collected through the Uship application, you accept the offer. And as soon as you accept the offer, then Uship bills you, and it will charge you with the billing parameters that you gave them. They will charge you the amount plus a fee. That fee, if I'm not mistaken, today, based on my experience, is 10% with the minimum of $25. If you have the integration with Etsy, then you get a $12 rebate on your next order, right? That has been delivered. So If you have an order, a former order you did already that was delivered, then you get a credit of $12. If you have 2 orders, you get a credit of $24, and so on and so forth. So once you have accepted the offer and you get charged, the carrier gets notified that you accepted them, and then the conversation starts. As soon as you accept the offer, you get access to more information related to the carrier, inclusive of their phone number and their email, so that you can exchange with them outside of outside of Uship, if it's necessary. It might be easier to operate via messages, via IM. And that's the point where you're going to update your customer and let them know that you have selected your carrier and that you would be in a position to give them a pickup date soon, right? You will not have it yet, and you will not have the delivery date immediately, but you will potentially going to be able to give them a pickup date as soon as you have exchanged with your carrier, which is the next step. Agree on a pickup date and details with the carrier, which you can do typically via IM. I do it via IM most of the time. Some carriers prefer emails, very rarely through direct phone calls, because carriers generally are driving and they don't like phone calls. But if you can't get in touch with them in another way, you can give them a call. So in the meanwhile, while you wait for the pickup, what you can do is prepare the item and the paperwork. There's really not too much to be done, frankly, but I put a star here because I'm going to show you a couple of things you can do, but it's very limited, the type of paperwork and preparation that is required. And then that's when the pickup occurs. We're going to go over the pickup of the paperwork at the same time. There's really, again, not much to be done at the pickup stage. So once the item has been picked up, that's when you are here between pickup and delivery, right, at the carrier level. That's when you go and update the Etsy order to mark it as completed. But there's a trick here to be aware of. We'll discuss that, because you may not want to update the Etsy order immediately, depending on when the delivery date is. Because Uship, the integration with Uship with Etsy gives you only 5 days delivery time between pickup and delivery, and sometimes it may require more than 5 days, for instance, if you're shipping from East Coast to West Coast. So we'll talk about that. Then all you have to do is monitor the progress, but there's not much progress you can monitor, because Uship is from A to B in a white glove mechanism, so you don't know where they're standing in the progress unless you exchange with the carrier, which is obviously an option. Once the delivery occurs, and we're here, then you get notified automatically via workflow of the delivery. You may know that it might occur because of your exchange with the carrier. But anyway, when it occurs, the Etsy app will notify you. And a couple of hours later, sometimes the day after, the Etsy status gets updated to delivered. What I recommend you do when you get notification of delivery is that you get in touch with the customer via Etsy and confirm that they received it, right? Because next step is going to be to release the payment, because the carrier, you paid, but the carrier hasn't been paid yet. And so before you pay the carrier, you want to make sure that the customer indeed received the item. So that's what happens. You confirm with them they received it, you release the payment, and then an extra optional step is to provide feedback on Uship of how your carrier did. They will do the same for you, so that it's a mutual rating. And then what you can do also, if the Etsy customer doesn't give you a review, you can request a review, but these are kind of optional steps. As you can see, there are some dotted lines here that goes to progress update. A very good practice is to keep your customer abreast of the progress. You can use the Etsy messaging to do that. It's some customers give you also their phone number. You get their emails through the Etsy mechanism, but it's a best practice to do it in Etsy so that you're within the frame of the transaction. So yeah, so that's essentially what happens. And now we're going to go into some of these steps more in detail so you can see the screens and you can understand a little better what I'm talking about. All right, so here we're going to look at how you need to set up your Etsy shipping profiles or profile to be able to take advantage of the Uship integration. Now remember, Uship, the advantage of Uship compared to UPS or FedEx is that they ship from A to B, right? And it's white glove. So it's not going to go through those, you know, delivery intermediate centers where they throw it on a belt, and then if it's not created, it's going to get destroyed. This is A to B, just in a blanket, and so obviously that's the advantage. So I'm going to show you here how I did it, and we're going to use this profile, fixed 300. I'll explain why it's called fixed 300. As you can see, I have 18 items that take advantage of this. So obviously my country of origin is the United States. My zip code is 19143, which is Philadelphia. Processing time, super important, right? It's super important generally in Etsy, but it's particularly important when you operate with Uship, because once the order books, once the customer buys, you need time to create your listing in Uship, select your carrier, negotiate with your carrier, and depending on the location you're sending to, it may take a while. And so having enough time in terms of processing time is very helpful. So I set a custom range with 3 to 4 weeks. I think 2 to 3 is okay too. And it gives you time, because Etsy really looks at the ship by date, and you will ding you in terms of star seller if you don't ship on time. Also, it's a great way to set expectations with the customer that they're not going to get it until a certain time, and it's in the listing. It's shown in the listing before they even buy, right? So it's very important. Now, the other reason why it's important is the relationship with the delivery date, and that takes us to the shipping service. So this is where you select Uship. You only have one option. For Uship, you only have 1 to 5 business days. You have no calculated shipping for Uship, which you do have for USPS, and I believe you may have it for FedEx. I don't know. I don't use FedEx. But anyway, so you only have 5 business days from pickup to delivery. Now, this is not something Etsy dings you on in terms of star seller, but it sets an expectation with the customer in terms of between the pickup date and the delivery, how much time it goes by. So if you have an order that, for instance, needs to go from the East Coast to the West Coast, and your carrier says, hey, I need a month between the pickup and the delivery because they have a different delivery places they go to, they have a specific path they follow, they have multiple orders, then you can use some of your processing time to give you a buffer for your 5 days limit here. So when the pickup occurs, I would recommend in this instance, you would not mark the order as completed, because that will nail your pickup time and then the clock starts ticking. But then you can wait some time if you're within buffer to complete your order, and then so that you stay within the range of the 1 to 5 days. You can communicate with your customers and tell them the pickup has occurred, but you're not marking it as picked up yet. The customer can still monitor progress, and I'll show you how, even outside of Etsy. But Etsy will not be marked as completed yet. But obviously, if it's East Coast to East Coast, that's not a problem. I don't care. In that case, generally it takes 2 to 3 days. But if it's really large distances, and especially if your carrier picks up way ahead of time, then you may want to be careful. This is, again, it really goes down to communicating and be very clear with your carrier in terms of what they do. In terms of what you charge, you can only charge fixed price. As I said, you cannot charge based on the delivery zip code, unfortunately. So one way to do it is to put, here I put 200 for the additional item, but I might as well put 100. It doesn't really matter. But so I put 300, meaning that I will charge them 300 maximum. But in my label, in my description of the item, I say, if you send me your zip code and the median of Uship is less than 300, I will charge you less, right? So I encourage them to send me their zip code. So I'm going to show you what I have here. If I go to listings, for instance, and I take furniture, sorry, not the right label. oops, and I take furniture, and I take this guy, for instance, you will see that in the description, first, immediately, before even he explains, it says, for furniture order in zip code less than 700 miles of Philadelphia, contact me with your zip code and I'll give you a rating. Because I found out that less than 700 miles from Philly, roughly it's less than 300. And so I would give him a quote and adjust. But if it's obviously higher than 700, I wouldn't. And if it turns out that it's the West Coast, I may end up losing, right? So it's up to you what you put, right? You can put 600, which is probably the highest you can get to, or put a little less and accept that in some cases you will not get the totality. All right, so that's for the first step. All right, this is when we're going to look at how to list an item on Uship. Obviously, it assumes that you have already set up a Uship account and that you have your billing set up and everything. There's a unit on Uship on how to do that. I'm not going to explain that, but I'll point you also to how you get the Etsy rebate. Every time you book an order, you get a credit for the following order of $12 if you are an Etsy merchant. So if you have an Etsy shop. So, okay, so let's imagine that I just closed a deal on Etsy. I just did a sale and I'm getting ready to do my, to list my items. So I'm going to simulate starting a new shipment. In reality, I won't, and then I'll show you a draft. So start a new shipment starts here, and it's a household item. So I'm going to use this. It's a piece of furniture. I'm going to say it's an Art Deco dresser. I need to give them the size. Because it will be blanket wrap, I give them just the size. I don't add anything on top. So let's say 25 and 30, 16, 8 and 50 pounds. We can talk about additional items, but later. I mean, you can add, if you want to ship multiple items, you can. It's actually good because you optimize the costs, because there's a certain level of fixed costs in sending it. So most of the time, if the system tells you that it costs you $350 to ship one, if you had a second item for the same destination, most of the time you go a little above $350, but not much more. So it's important to know. So I am shipping from 19143, Philadelphia, and let's assume that I'm sending it to Madison, Wisconsin, 53711, let's say. So I do this and automatically it will tell me that roughly it's going to cost me $327 without the fees. Remember, they will add either $25 minimum or 10% for you to pay. Then also the carrier pays something, but that I don't know what it is. Probably the same, but I cannot tell you exactly. They give you a range, but obviously, if you go much below the average, it's very unlikely you book. If you go much above the average, it's way more likely. So you can either set your own price, you can edit this 327 that's proposed, or let the carriers bid. I generally go this way, set the offer price, and this is where you can say which ones are your earliest pickup date. Let's imagine that are, I'm going to say Monday the 2nd, and I don't want it to be any later than, well, I should go by my dates on Etsy. If I have 3 weeks on Etsy, probably I don't want it to be picked up, later than 2.5 weeks. So I'm going to put here, say, for instance, the 17th of September, and the earliest delivery date, well, it's Wisconsin, assuming that they come and pick it up quite quickly. It could be the 6th. And the latest delivery date, obviously, it needs to be my processing time plus my 5 days. That's my maximum, right? So I'm now calculating that here, but let's imagine for a second it's the 30th of September. I generally go with blanket wrap, which is most common. I do not blanket wrap it. I let them do that, but I check with them that they will during my negotiation, during my exchanges. And I ask them to do it in front of me and then remove the blanket wrap when they get to the customer, in front of the customer. It's an A to B service, right? So it's not a UPS or FedEx which goes through 10,000 intermediate steps. I don't select the other options. Here I put in the photos. I'm not going to do it here. The instructions, most of the time here I say that there are 3 steps at pickup. And ideally you ask your customer if there are steps at delivery and you put it here, right? If you don't have it here, you can say you don't know yet and then provide it to them a little later. Here you can put your reference number, which is typically your Etsy sales order, and then you create your listing, okay? Okay, so now I'm going to show you my dashboard. Here you have the drafts that you have saved. I have a couple of them, and then if you have any shipment that is waiting for the carriers to bid to or to send you an offer, they will be listed here. I have none. I have one that's assigned. This one I closed it, and it's waiting pickup. So I'm going to show you, and you can look at it. And I have a lot completed here. You can see as soon as it comes up, there's a number of ones that have been completed, right? So let's look at the assigned one. You have all the details here. Obviously, once it's assigned and locked in, you cannot change it anymore. So you can see, because now I have closed the deal with this carrier, meaning I have accepted his offer, I have access to his phone number and to his email. And I have already paid Uship with the service charge, but obviously the carrier has not been charged yet. And there are all the details here of what I have set up. Now remember that on Etsy, the customer typically, when you close an order, you have access to the email of the customer, but you don't have access to their phone number. So it's good practice to ask them to give you their phone number for you to put it into here, so that when the delivery occurs, the carrier can directly deal with the customer on, the timing, let them know, and so on and so forth. If they do not want to, you can still give the carrier their email, but generally customers accept to give their phone number because it's so much easier to interact by phone. Okay, so this is my open item. So this has been closed. So this has been closed in terms of deal, but has not been picked up yet, right? And so that's how it works. So you can see here I have an option for printing BOL. The BOL is the bill of landing, and it's the document that basically defines basically collects all the characteristic of your shipment. I am trying not to show you the customer ID and their information because it's obviously confidential, but that we're going to talk about this in a second, because this is something you need to prepare as part of the prep exercise. And then what is important to know here is also you have an inbox. This is where you exchange with the different carriers during the bid process or the offer process. This is where they can ask you questions. You can ask them questions, and it's a safe place, and you don't need a phone number or their email address because you can operate here. See how many I have. I didn't accept all of these offers. These are all the ones I've interacted with. Now, once you have closed with a given carrier, you don't have to do it here. You can do it directly via the email or the phone number that you saw in their profile, which is obviously more practical. Another thing that I wanted to call out is that during the bidding process, during the selection process, you will have access also to the provider information. I'm trying to find where that is, but I don't see it here. But normally you have access. Oh, here, there you go. So if I click here, I see the carrier profile. I see how many shipment they have done, what is their ratings in terms of stars. I can see all the reviews. And this is available to you for all the carriers that bid or that send you an offer, right? Obviously, this one is the one that was selected, so that's why it's here, Right, so that's pretty much it. So at this point, in my case, I am waiting for the pickup date. He has told me that they will pick up on September 14, which is close to my deadline, right? But the customer is happy with that because they're on vacation until the 10th. So, but again, means that I have made sure that all this communication has taken place so that the customer is, aware of what's going on. All right. So I will also check with them how long it takes them from pickup to delivery so that I will customize my date when I complete my order. That's it. So we can go to the next step. All right. So we are here in our process. We are roughly here. Well, we have accepted the order, sorry, and we have updated the customer. Now, obviously, in the system, I can, or via email directly, or via IM, I can agree with the pickup dates and everything. Now we get to preparing the paperwork and the pickup. So there's not much to be done, but I'm going to show you anyway what that entails. It's basically what you want to do is make sure you print your bill of lading. Now it comes pre-populated with the information you entered, but you want to make sure that you may want to, add a couple of informations here, and you can print it on a printer and then write on it. I generally print 2 copies and I pre-sign it. The shipper, you are the shipper, and the other person is the carrier. So I pre-sign it. I don't date it. I date it the day when there's a pickup, so it's ready to go. And then the other thing that I do is I also print the packing slip of the order, right? So for instance, here you can see I have my order waiting. And so I would come here and do print and print the packing slip, right? So you can send it to your printer, and this is customizable on Etsy. And then you would add, so the paper, the packing slip would go, I typically put it in a drawer, and then I put my business card. I mean, you decide whatever you want to put in addition, but the packing slip and the BOL is generally a good practice. And then the BOL will need to be signed by the carrier when they come over, right? So they typically take a copy and then they sign a copy for you, which you will keep for your records. Some carriers do not want to take a copy because they have an electronic copy integrated with Uship, so they will only sign your copy so you can keep your version. So that's pretty much it. Now, one thing that it's important, again, make sure that your carrier blank wraps it at pickup and agrees to unwrap it at delivery in front of the customer. That's a good practice. And when you select your carrier, again, verify their policies, their constraints, and interact with them and clarify any open item. One thing that I wanted to call out as well is that I have a tendency to work a lot with the same carriers now that I have been doing quite a number of shipment. So the way I do that is that I still go through Uship. When I enter my listing, I text the carrier that I know from before. For instance, I have a carrier with whom I work a lot on the East Coast, and I send them a text message and I say, hey, I have an item out there for the East Coast. So if you're interested, check it out. Because obviously it's better to work with people you know than people you don't know, because you have validated the working model already. It's still within Uship guidelines because you are doing everything by the book, by entering the listing, nothing outside of Uship, but you are just, letting the person that you know that there's an opportunity, and then other people will also send in an offer and you will decide what you want to do. So that's basically what I do, but you do whatever you want. What you should not do is do it outside of Uship, because then you lose everything in terms of integration. And also Etsy will ding you if you don't have a tracking number, and the BOL number is your tracking number of Etsy. So when you have done the pickup, this is when you need to come in the order and complete it. Actually, let me show you real quick. So here it says complete order, and when you come here and complete the order, you would put Uship here, and then the BOL number, and then complete the order. I'm not going to do this now, but that's the way it works. Remember again, don't complete the order too quickly if it goes far away, and you may have a longer than 5 days time from pickup to delivery. So that's typically how I operate. All right, hope that was helpful. And then the next step is talking about how you release the payment. All right, so my order has been picked up, and then I have notified my customer. I have completed my order on Etsy. So now all I have to do is wait, right? And I will not see any updates coming up on Etsy or on Uship intermediate between pickup and delivery, right? The status changes on pickup, but it doesn't change until it gets delivered, right? So if I want to know where it's standing, the only way I have is to text the carrier and tell them how far they are from delivery. And you can do that. Like, for instance, if it's a long time, for instance, for East Coast to West Coast, it's only in your rights to ask where it's standing so that you can update your customer. When the delivery occurs, or before the delivery occurs, typically the carrier will notify the customer and use the phone number or the email to connect with them to make sure that they can agree on a good time to meet, to make sure that the reception is done in person. And then when that happens, then the carrier will update the order on Uship, and you will receive a notification of delivery automatically. A couple of days later, as I said, so a couple of hours later, or sometime a day later, the Etsy status gets updated to delivered. And again, remember, before you release payment, which is what I'm going to show you, make sure, talk with your customer and make sure that they did indeed receive it. Okay. When that happens, you can release payment. I had a carrier texting me saying, well, it's 6 a.m. Can we drop the piece on the porch and leave? Can you release payment? And the answer is no. You need to deliver at the time that you agreed with your customer in person. And once they confirm that they did receive it, I will release payment. Okay. So the way you do to release payment, so I can't really release payment here, but this is my my order that's booked. If it were delivered, these 3 steps would be shown. Let me go back for a second. So the status booked, I think picked up and delivered, right? So then at pickup, this second tag will be shown. It still sits on assigned. When it gets delivered, it goes to completed. And this is where, right, it shows this and it gets it delivered. So I can't release payment here because I have already released payment. But normally, when you received the notification of delivery, you have a button here called release payment, and then you can send them release the payment. One option is also to use a code. Uship will give you that option. So you basically send them a payment code and they enter a code, and that will trigger payment. Okay, so that's essentially it. And so at this point, you are here and you're practically done. You will receive a workflow notification saying provide feedback. You can if you want to. I think it's a 1 to 5 rating. And they will do the same to you. The carrier will provide feedback on you. So then if you want, you can request review on Etsy. Now, what can go wrong in all of this process? So I must say I never had really funky situations where things went wrong. But if I had to call out a couple of things to be careful, so, well, obviously, as you review your offers, ask all the questions. And I generally like to work with carriers that are good with communication, because I hate it when it's a black box, right? And customers hate it too. So that's why I work with ones that I know when I can. But typically, yeah, you would be careful there. Once it happened to me that a carrier promised me to pick up something at a certain time, they kept on changing the pickup date and within range. And once I started complaining, they basically said, well, look for somebody else. Then what I've done is I canceled the order. When you cancel the listing or the order, you get refunded completely if you do it at that stage. And then I picked a different carrier. I relisted the item, and I picked a different carrier. Obviously, it's not pleasant because your time is ticking, but you have that option in case. Customer service is pretty good. They answer the phone. They will help you. So can't complain there. The other funky thing that happened to me is in that California delivery, because it was so long, there were a couple of hiccups. The customer was going on vacation. They couldn't agree on a delivery date. So it becomes a little clunky there because you're caught in the middle between the carrier and the customer. But then, what I did at some point, and I said, you know what? You guys have each other's phone numbers, talk to each other, and find the time that works best for you. There's no point in going through me, although I stayed abreast of the progress. So that's really it. I never had any other funky situation happening to me. I hope this was helpful, and let me know what you think about it. Thank you. All right, everybody, I hope it was helpful. One thing that I have not shared directly, but there will be 2 links in the YouTube video, is an overall video on how to set up an account on Uship, but this is standard process, so I will defer to the Uship videos. And then also a video that explains how you get Etsy a credit through Uship. You are getting $30 for the first, and then you get a credit for each delivered order in the next upcoming order. But that information will be a little video from Uship in the link in the in my YouTube video. All right, so you should have everything. Hopefully it's going to help you. If not, send questions. More than happy to help based on my experience. Thank you.